Hello and welcome to Banking Frontiers Live to this interesting concept on technology trendsetters. We are going to have a conversation with a very luminary technology leader, Ravi Pichan, who is a Chief Technology Officer and is at the helm of technologies at India's topmost insurance company, HDFC Life. Ravi, welcome to Banking Frontiers Live.
Thank you very much, Babu. It's a pleasure to be here with you.
Thank you very much, Ravi. Ravi, we are talking about simplification. We are talking about innovation and related areas. So I would like to first start off with what are the major areas in life insurance where you have been seeing maximum of innovations happening? And what are the main technology areas where you see a lot of moments and happening in this sector?
Sure. So, Babu, great question. Kind of, tee off our conversation. So if you really look at, where some of the innovations are taking place from a sector standpoint, one is obviously on products. The product space itself is going through a lot of innovation. But the other space that, the innovation is slowly taking shape and moving at an aggressive pace is the whole, illness to wellness, kind of that ecosystem, right? I mean, it's moving more into the wellness sphere, and how do we actually, leverage technology and create that ecosystem to promote wellness, and through that awareness of good health for the end consumer. I think that's taking a lot of shape, and also in the process educating our industry and the population about insurance itself. As you know, it's a very very low in terms of penetration in our country. Just around 3%, slightly shade less than that. So I think there's a huge opportunity. And that that is a main area of focus for us and for the industry. As far as technology is concerned, Babu, on the innovation front, there's a lot of new technology out there. But again, going back to my theme about simplification, and part of that is also leveraging what we have. So there is a lot of new technology that has been absorbed, but we have to also look at is that at a point where there is value creation for the customer. So, is AI ML a new piece of technology? No, we've talked about it for years. But I think there is still a lot that can be tapped into from an AI ML space to really create that differentiator and the differentiated experience for the customer. There are a number of surveys where, which says that, customers after engaging with, voice bots do not engage back with the organization at all. So that customer experience is less than magnificent, and so we've got to still take that to the wow realm. So that's one. The second one is also looking at when we talk about an ecosystem, concepts around Internet of Things, which have been IoT, which has been prevalent in the non-financial services industry, is also penetrating into financial services industry, into both the banking and insurance realm. So I think that's slowly taking a lot of root there. And the other aspect which is gaining a lot of pace, again, not necessarily a new concept, which is the whole API. So when you really look at how technology is shaping up the ecosystem, it is not about any organization trying to do all the services by itself, but it is by working with an ecosystem, working with the insurtechs. Then the question is, how do you actually bring the best of the world to provide that simplified and improved customer experience? Is by having an integrated model where you're able to integrate with various solutions through microservices, APIs, etc. So I think that's taking a lot more shape in terms of innovation. And again, innovation is not only about necessarily, at least in my mind, brand new ideas, but it is also about further harnessing ideas and technologies that have been in play to drive business value.
Interesting. How are organizations today working towards mitigating these risks out of these innovations? And what are the new findings in that space?
So going back, I'm going to take a step back, right? So if you really look at, BFSI, I think the industry has evolved over the last, 20, 25 years in terms of its ability to, accept risk and manage those risks. And I think the insurance segment is, slowly, coming up to, that realization as well, especially in the last, 5 to 10 years. I think the banking sector is a little bit ahead of the insurance sector in that sense. So, when we go back and talk about our engagement with insurtechs, right, and we've done that as well. We have a program within our own organization called Future Us, where we engage with a number of insurtechs. In fact, we've co-created solutions with them, and we've got solutions in our environment with them, targeting, very specific problem statements for us that has helped improve the customer experience. Now that comes with its own set of risks. So we really, monitor those risks very closely for a variety of reasons. The insurtech, some of them, might move on to a new idea. They may not find the market lucrative enough. So we've got to ensure that there is sufficient IP within our own organization that should such a risk materialize, then we are able to mitigate it by either working with other partners, more of the partners who do a lot of other services work, and where the model is more industrialized, or our ability, again going back to the architecture we talked about, our ability to probably integrate in a very seamless fashion with another insurtech that provides services in the similar space. So the key is not necessarily to take an extremely conservative approach, because that will not enable you to be market leaders, which is where we are, and we would continue to be in that space. The key is to embrace, new technology ourselves, embrace new partners, new insurtechs, but manage some of those risks very closely on an ongoing basis. And that is something that we do. And like you said, when it comes to compliance, data plays a key role. So we've got very strong principles and processes that we use to ensure that we stay compliant in terms of how data is collected, how data is stored, and how data is used. So that is something that is very strongly inherent as a foundation.
Wonderful. Let me just come to the next question, where we speak that all these innovations ultimately are set up on a foundation. You have already invested a lot into existing technologies, and these technologies are consistently changing. And all these innovations would be built upon a foundation or the other, which has to also match the requirements of the innovations that you have to work it out. So how do you tunnel this transition of these foundations so that it matches the requirements of the futuristic technologies, at the same time protect your existing infrastructure investments?
That's again a great question, because we can always get, sometimes carried away with innovation and new pieces of technology, which is very exciting. Uh, Ultimately, it will come down to, value creation for our business tied to value creation for our customer. So we've got to really look at the new technology and examine that in terms of what is the value creation that it brings in, the differentiator it brings in. Now, there may be many, scenarios that may play out. The other question is also to look at your existing investments. It's not necessarily that everything is throwaway. So, we've created a very strong, API foundation for us that enables us to bring newer technologies and integrate it with our existing ecosystem. The tunnel that you talked about, in terms of the whole, whether some use the hub and spoke kind of example, right? So you're able to integrate that through this API factory that we have created over the years. So that is another way where we are able to, have newer technologies also coexist with existing technology. But the key question to answer here is, how do I actually leverage that technology to optimize and simplify my business process? Because that is what is going to give a simplified and a more enhanced customer experience. And you have to also understand the customer demographic profile is changing. With every day, the profile is changing, your target customers. And you've got to address all the segments. So it is not that you can only address one segment. You have multiple customer segments to address. And you've got to ensure that, the business process is simplified which does not necessarily add undue risk, but you are also not going down a one size fits all. So leveraging technology for that, whether it is in the case of smarter underwriting, leveraging technology for that, or where required, depending on data. Again, we talked about harnessing the power of data to have straight through processing, have less manual interventions or steps and checks in it where applicable. So you're basically able to leverage both technology, simplified business process to address customer segments and address them in a manner which creates value for them and simplifies their overall engagement with us. I think that is going to be key, and how we have embraced technology, brought it into our ecosystem, and have it coexist with our existing investments that we have made.
Wonderful. How do you ensure that this acceleration of the deployment of innovations happens as fast as possible?
Absolutely. And again, that's a great question, Babu, because we again leverage a lot of technology as part of our foundation in terms of, again, not necessarily new technology, but how do I leverage the technology around continuous integration, continuous build, continuous testing, work in that whole agile mindset, both from a mindset perspective and a process perspective, to actually, create a new solution on the back of either an ecosystem or an insurtech or a combination of both, and then deploy it into our existing infrastructure and integrate it with the solutions that I talked about some time back. So, having that pipeline is very crucial, and engaging with the business. Ultimately, our colleagues in the business are seeing, the market dynamics changing. And how do I engage with them continuously and, have this cultural transformation to look at what is the need of the market, what could be a potential, white space that we could address, and how do I essentially quickly address the white space with a combination of a build or a buy, or a combination of both, leverage, the CI/CD/CT pipeline to kind of, deploy that fast. And like I said earlier, we've got to take some calculated risks, create those MVPs, target some segments. And we need to be a little bit careful, because unlike a general insurance, our life insurance products, the term is much longer. So we've got to be, careful in those risks, but not get overly conservative, and deploy those MVPs. And like I said earlier, if they are successful, measure the business value, the customer experience that it is creating, and then, expand quickly. Or if not, you're able to then, just have a fail fast and move on to the next, product, the next innovation, the next value creation. Yes, it will leave some risks, but those are, the modeling that we do ahead of time, so that we are able to understand the risk that we would potentially take by going ahead with a particular innovation.
Interesting. And my last question to you is basically in the area of the ecosystems that are required to create the innovations or the insurance industry of the future. You anyways are working with a lot of ecosystems. Existing, how are you working with? How are you creating ecosystems of the future? This is the ecosystem overall play. And what trends do you see in this ecosystem?
So the first thing we're saying is that, we are also creating our own ecosystem. So we've got an ecosystem that we've created called Life 99, which is, in the entire retirement space, addressing that space. So while we talk today a lot about life insurance, and we talked about Clarify and how we can help and enable young, citizens of our country to, understand insurance and embrace insurance, an ecosystem like Life 99 also addresses the retirement space, right? Because again, if you tie it back to wellness, right? With wellness and awareness and changes in customer lifestyle, people are also living longer. So which is great, right? I mean, they've got a much better lifespan than in the past, which is going to continuously improve. But it also means that you've got to plan for retirement. And Life 99 is one such ecosystem that we've created. Similarly, we, in terms of, again, going back to your question, the way I see it is that the world of ecosystems also is going to grow. So sometimes you would be part of an ecosystem, right? So if you, again, going back to ecosystems that that have been created. There are some examples, coming out of China. We've got local examples of ecosystems as well that you're well aware of. So we got to participate in ecosystems as well and have ecosystems of our own, in terms of, being present in the market and delivering value through those ecosystems to our end customers. But ecosystems is one part of it, Babu. The earlier conversation that we talked about, right? At the end of the day, if you want to simplify and you want to provide that value, you've got to look at, how are you integrated with that ecosystem? And through that ecosystem, if a customer comes into your, into your space, again, how are you simplifying and providing that wow experience to the customer? Otherwise, you can be part of the ecosystem, but you may, realize less value than you may have thought when you integrated with that ecosystem. So I think ecosystem is going to be another play, and you can actually have multiple, layers and dimensions of the ecosystem. So it may not be multidimensional. So it could be ecosystem inside an ecosystem. But again, ultimately, all of this is going back to the same question. Through this, are we creating value for the customer? Are we simplifying it for them? Because if you get ahead of yourself through these ecosystem, you could end up creating a lot of confusion, and in which case, you're going to lose the customer, and therefore the benefit of the ecosystem is lost. So we've got to keep that in mind, whether you're creating your own ecosystem or you're integrating with an existing ecosystem. But both are essential in terms of the future.
Wonderful. Great. Thank you very much, Ravi. I think I had a wonderful conversation with you, and we look forward to more such valuable insights from you in the future as well.
Thank you very much, Babu, for inviting me. I had a great conversation with you. I think we exchanged a lot of ideas and the way forward, trying to paint a picture for the future. And I look forward to engaging with you and Banking Frontiers for other such discussions. Wishing you all the very best.
Thank you so much, Ravi.